Casino. The hotel. Corleone family wants to buy you out.
Alfredo James Pacino, born on April 25, 1940, in New York City, is one of the most celebrated actors in Hollywood history, rising from humble beginnings in the Bronx. Pacino trained at the Actors Studio under Lee Strasberg, mastering method acting. His breakthrough came with The Godfather, 1972, where his role as Michael Corleone made him a global icon. With a career spanning over 5 decades, Pacino has earned an Academy Award, Tony Awards, and countless honors, proving his versatility across film, stage, and television. His intense performances and commanding presence solidified him as a cinematic legend. Al Pacino shares 7 actors he says he hates or finds difficult to work with. Pacino and Brando, a fractured rivalry. Coming off his legendary rise as Michael Corleone, Al Pacino's path was inevitably tied to the towering figure of Marlon Brando in The Godfather, 1972. While Pacino admired Brando's reputation as a master of method acting, the collaboration between the young newcomer and the Hollywood titan soon revealed irreconcilable differences. Brando, celebrated for his improvisational genius, often deviated from the written script, creating scenes that felt spontaneous and alive. For Pacino, however, this unpredictability was infuriating. He was a disciplined actor, committed to the text and the emotional architecture of the script. Brando's constant improvisations disrupted Pacino's rhythm, leaving him frustrated on set. The tension deepened in 1973 when the Academy announced its nominations for The Godfather. Brando received a nomination for Best Actor, while Pacino, despite having more screen time as Michael Corleone, was relegated to the Best Supporting Actor category. To Pacino, this was not only an injustice, but also a clear sign of how Brando overshadowed him, both in Hollywood's eyes and in the press. In protest, Pacino boycotted the Oscars, refusing to attend a ceremony that, in his view, had undervalued his work. Brando would later famously decline the award altogether, sending a Native American activist to reject the statuette in protest of Hollywood's treatment of indigenous peoples. The clash of styles and egos left its mark on their relationship. Although both actors continued their illustrious careers, they never reunited on screen again, except indirectly, through archival footage in The Godfather Part 3. The coldness between them was palpable, an unspoken acknowledgement that the brilliance of The Godfather had also birthed a rivalry too deep to mend. Yet, despite his resentment, Pacino never denied Brando's extraordinary talent. In interviews, he often referred to Brando's work as magical, recognizing that no one else could bring such raw authenticity to a role. Still, the personal wound remained. For Pacino, Brando symbolized both the glory and the frustration of Hollywood, an actor who embodied greatness while also casting a long, often suffocating shadow. Their fractured bond became one of cinema's most fascinating what-ifs, a reminder that even legends are not immune to conflict. Pacino and DiCaprio's acting clash, following his long and complicated rivalry with Marlon Brando. Al Pacino would, decades later, find himself in another clash of artistic temperaments, this time with Leonardo DiCaprio on the set of Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, 2019. The tension wasn't born of jealousy, but of opposing philosophies of acting. DiCaprio, widely regarded as one of the finest actors of his generation, is known for meticulous preparation. For his roles, he dives into historical research, fills notebooks with detailed notes, and rehearses endlessly until every line, gesture, and pause feels carefully orchestrated. Pacino, on the other hand, represents an older school of thought, the instinctive method actor who thrives on spontaneity, trusting raw emotion and intuition over academic preparation. The collision was inevitable. On set, Pacino reportedly mocked DiCaprio's obsessive note-taking with a sharp quip. "The research department is down the hall. This here is the acting room." The remark, half joking, half cutting, exposed Pacino's frustration with what he saw as an overly clinical approach to a craft that, for him, should remain visceral and alive. DiCaprio, though professional, was visibly irritated, feeling his process had been belittled by a legend he once admired. Their dynamic reflected more than personal irritation. It was emblematic of a generational divide in Hollywood between actors who believe in preparation as the foundation of art and those who believe in surrendering to the unpredictability of the moment. Despite the friction, both men delivered memorable performances in Tarantino's sprawling film, which celebrated the golden age of Hollywood while also marking Pacino's late career resurgence. Yet behind the scenes, there lingered a tension that insiders described as respectful distance. Neither actor sought open confrontation, but the undercurrent was there. Pacino resenting DiCaprio's meticulousness as stifling, DiCaprio quietly questioning whether Pacino's instinct-driven style had lost relevance in a changing industry. Over time, however, that chill began to soften. In 2024, Pacino and DiCaprio were photographed having a cheerful lunch in Los Angeles, joined by George DiCaprio, Leo's father. The encounter surprised many who assumed their relationship was permanently strained. The images showed laughter, shared stories, and, according to those present, a subtle but meaningful shift. Pacino, now in his 80s, seemed more amused than annoyed by DiCaprio's seriousness, while DiCaprio acknowledged Pacino's legacy without defensiveness. What had once been a clash of egos evolved into something more like a cautious truce, a recognition that both paths, whether rooted in research or instinct, could coexist in the broader tapestry of cinema. Pacino himself later admitted in an interview that DiCaprio's preparation, though not his style, reminds me of the discipline of great athletes. For his part, DiCaprio expressed admiration, calling Pacino a force of nature whose instincts brought life to every scene. Their relationship may never be one of deep friendship, but it embodies a rare and delicate respect forged in the fire of artistic difference. In the end, the tension between Pacino and DiCaprio reflects less a personal feud than a fascinating dialogue between two towering traditions of acting. A reminder that even in Hollywood, art is as much about conflict as it is about collaboration. Pacino, Cruise, and collateral conflict. After years of generational clashes with actors like Marlon Brando and Leonardo DiCaprio, Al Pacino found himself facing yet another artistic conflict, this time with Tom Cruise during the early stages of Michael Mann's Collateral 2004. Initially, Pacino was attached to play the taxi driver opposite Cruise's cold-blooded hitman. On paper, it was a dream pairing, two Hollywood legends from different traditions, sharing the screen in a gritty crime thriller. But beneath the surface, the differences in their approach to acting quickly became irreconcilable. Cruise, famous for his relentless preparation, immersed himself in the role of Vincent, the assassin. He studied case files on contract killers, worked with firearms experts to perfect his shooting technique, and built a meticulous backstory for his character, complete with timelines and psychological notes. His philosophy was clear. The more research and structure, the more authentic the performance. Pacino, however, was cut from a different cloth. Trained in the method tradition, He believed that raw emotion mattered more than technical detail. For him, acting was about capturing the truth of a moment, not checking off a list of facts. As he once put it, "I don't care what school a man went to. I care what he feels in the scene." This clash of philosophies soon boiled over. Pacino grew frustrated with Cruise's clinical precision, feeling that it left little room for spontaneity or vulnerability. Cruise, in turn, saw Pacino's instinct-driven approach as too loose for the tightly structured vision that director Michael Mann demanded. The tension was subtle, but undeniable, an artistic incompatibility that couldn't be reconciled. Eventually, Pacino stepped away from the project, and the role of the cab driver went to Jamie Foxx. Ironically, Foxx's nuanced performance earned him an Academy Award nomination, while the film itself became one of Cruise's most acclaimed dramatic turns. The missed collaboration left a strange legacy. Pacino and Cruise, despite both being towering figures of modern cinema, never worked together again. For Pacino, the experience reaffirmed his distrust of overly technical actors, those who, in his view, risked suffocating the life out of a performance by overthinking it. For Cruise, it confirmed his belief that discipline and preparation were the only ways to sustain a long career in Hollywood. In hindsight, Pacino has occasionally spoken with measured respect for Cruise's work ethic, acknowledging his dedication as admirable, but the personal rift remained. To Pacino, Cruise represented a philosophy he could never embrace, the triumph of preparation over instinct. To Cruise, Pacino was a reminder of an older era, where raw talent was enough to carry a film. Their paths never crossed again, a silent acknowledgement that some artistic worlds are simply too far apart. Pacino's cold rift with Spacey, after his clashes with actors like Tom Cruise and Leonardo DiCaprio, Al Pacino's discomfort with different acting philosophies resurfaced much earlier, on the set of Glengarry Glen Ross, 1992. The ensemble drama, stacked with powerhouse performers such as Jack Lemmon, Alec Baldwin, and Ed Harris, was a perfect stage for Pacino's fiery energy. But working with Kevin Spacey exposed a friction that, though subtle, would never heal. Spacey, even then, was known for his precision. Every gesture, pause, and line delivery was calculated, almost mathematical. For many, it showcased discipline and control. For Pacino, however, it felt like artifice. He believed Spacey wasn't living the role, but rather demonstrating an actor playing a role. To Pacino, that stripped away authenticity, the very heart of acting. The tension became public when Pacino, frustrated during rehearsals, reportedly told the crew he's not acting, he's illustrating acting. The word stung, and though Spacey didn't retaliate, the remark created an invisible wall between the two. The production itself remained professional, and no scandal erupted. Both actors delivered strong performances, and the film has since been hailed as one of the great showcases of ensemble acting. Yet behind the camera, the relationship between Pacino and Spacey froze into a permanent chill. They kept their distance, never collaborating again, and never publicly reconciling. Pacino, true to his method roots, saw Spacey as the embodiment of everything he distrusted in technical actors, those who, in his view, turned performance into a polished craft rather than a raw experience. Years later, as Spacey's career imploded under scandal, some commentators revisited Pacino's old criticism with fresh eyes, noting how eerily aligned it was with the perception that Spacey always performed even off-screen. For Pacino, however, the issue was never personal scandal, but artistic truth. In his world, acting meant surrendering to chaos and emotion. In Spacey's, it was about control and craft. Those two visions could never coexist. And so, what began as a quiet disagreement evolved into a lifelong silence. Pacino and Hoffman, resentment, following his uneasy collaborations and rivalries with other actors. Al Pacino's tension with Dustin Hoffman in the 1970s became one of Hollywood's most talked about contrasts. Both men were icons of the new Hollywood era, redefining screen acting with intensity and realism. Yet behind the acclaim lay a rivalry fueled not by scandal, but by clashing philosophies of performance and the relentless comparisons of the press. Hoffman built his reputation on a cerebral, analytical style. For every role, he dissected psychology, mapped motivations, and approached acting like a surgeon, precise and calculated. Pacino, on the other hand, was a creature of instinct, explosive, unpredictable, and emotionally raw. He lived within his characters rather than clinically constructing them. This fundamental divide meant that critics and journalists often painted them as foils. Hoffman, the intellectual craftsman, versus Pacino, the volcanic natural. The constant media comparisons drove Pacino mad. He hated being defined in opposition to another actor, especially one he neither admired nor trusted. In interviews, Pacino often dismissed the supposed rivalry, but privately, he resented how Hoffman's name always shadowed his own. Hollywood producers and award campaigns leaned into the narrative, pitting Dog Day Afternoon against Kramer versus Kramer. Pacino's Oscar runs against Hoffman's eventual wins. To Pacino, it was less about losing roles or trophies, and more about being trapped in a never-ending duel he never chose. As a result, the two men never collaborated on screen. Unlike De Niro, with whom Pacino shared both rivalry and camaraderie, Hoffman remained at arm's length. Their relationship was not explosive, but cold, defined by distance rather than confrontation. Even as time passed, the comparison lingered, cementing them as rival legends of their generation. Pacino, true to his nature, never sought reconciliation. He preferred to keep Hoffman out of his orbit entirely. Pacino and Leto's acting clash. After decades of conflicts with actors of different schools, Al Pacino faced one of his strangest challenges on the set of House of Gucci, 2021. This time, the tension came from Jared Leto, an actor infamous for his extreme brand of method acting. Leto transformed himself into Paolo Gucci, complete with prosthetics, exaggerated mannerisms, and a commitment to stay in character even when the cameras weren't rolling. For Pacino, who played Paolo's father, Aldo Gucci, this approach quickly became unbearable. Pacino, a master of disciplined stagecraft, believes in disappearing into a role while still respecting the boundary between acting and real life. Watching Leto insist on living as Paolo even at lunch breaks or during casual conversations frustrated him deeply. At one point, Pacino reportedly muttered to crew members, "Tell the kid the scene is over. He can come back now." It was half a joke, half a plea, but it revealed just how alien Leto's performance art style felt to Pacino's sense of craft. The tension never escalated into an outright feud, but it left a mark. Pacino avoided joint promotional appearances with Leto whenever possible, preferring to let the younger actor command the press circus while he maintained a quieter presence. To Pacino, Leto embodied a kind of performance art that prioritized eccentricity and spectacle over the disciplined pursuit of truth in a role. Their philosophies simply did not align. Pacino's theater-rooted tradition of craft clashed with Leto's exhibitionist extremes. Ultimately, House of Gucci became a cultural talking point as much for its behind-the-scenes stories as for its performances. Pacino continued to receive praise for his restrained, commanding presence, while Leto divided critics with his larger-than-life caricature. For Pacino, the experience reinforced an old lesson, that not all actors speak the same artistic language. In his eyes, Leto's devotion to staying in character crossed the line from art into indulgence, an indulgence he could never respect. Pacino's quiet rift with Depp. After decades of creative clashes with actors across generations, Al Pacino faced yet another conflict during Donnie Brasco, 1997, when he worked alongside Johnny Depp. The film, praised as one of the finest crime dramas of its decade, became the backdrop for a quiet but lasting tension between the two stars. Depp approached his role with his trademark method, building characters from external details. He focused on appearance, mannerisms, and subtle gestures, crafting an identity from the outside in. Pacino, however, had always believed in the opposite approach, living through emotion and instinct, creating a character from the inside out. This philosophical divide boiled over during a pivotal scene in a Brooklyn restaurant. Frustrated with Depp's detached style, Pacino reportedly cut him with a blunt remark, "You're not here with me." The words exposed the gap between their methods, one actor performing beside him, the other living fully within the moment. Though the film succeeded critically, the relationship between Pacino and Depp quietly fractured. They never collaborated again, and neither ever spoke publicly of the tension. In its own way, the silence became the clearest answer. For Pacino, Depp represented a kind of acting that felt hollow, more performance than presence. For Depp, Pacino's intensity may have felt overwhelming. Their paths diverged, leaving Donnie Brasco as both a cinematic triumph and a hidden reminder of two great actors who could never truly share the same stage. Pacino's conflicts, his true legacy. In the end, Al Pacino's conflicts with fellow actors were never just about ego. They were about philosophy. Pacino has always embodied instinct, living fully in the moment, trusting raw emotion above all. Many of his counterparts, from Brando to Leto, relied on preparation, structure, or even extreme methods. This fundamental clash of styles fueled legendary tensions, but also highlighted what made Pacino unique: his resistance to formula, his refusal to surrender to overanalysis, and his devotion to authenticity carved out a legacy unlike any other. Through conflict, Pacino defined himself as cinema's eternal force of instinct. If you enjoyed this story about Al Pacino, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more legends.